Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07 this Wednesday morning in your nation's capital. What a time to be alive, and we're here for it. A front row seat, in fact, giving you the play-by-play and some color analysis as world events just fly past. But you got to enjoy it and soak it in because, well, we're just reflecting on the last 22 hours. And we're going to dive deep into one of the huge victories that this Trump administration just secured from the University of Pennsylvania, which will end up having ramifications throughout the NCAA with regard to their destructive and, frankly, evil policy with regard to women's sports. We'll get to that in a moment. Also at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us for the conversation. 7:05, Byron York blowing away the lies about that Iran bombing run. Remember the original assessment? Yeah, Byron's done a deep dive on that. 8:05, Julio Rosas was at Alligator Alcatraz, and he came out alive yesterday. And at 8:35, Susan Friccio on the big tax cut reconciliation package that some are calling the big, beautiful bill. It's Larry O'Connor with a groovin' Julie Gunlock. Do you like your classic rock there?
Yeah, of course.
It was like you were at a beach party.
Just like I like my classic literature. Let's not start that again.
Why are you picking at that scab? Why do you hate Hamilton so much? It's a great show.
I actually hate Hamilton. Okay, sorry, we shouldn't go down that road. Sorry.
All right.
No, yeah, we'll stick to the plan here.
Let's stick the good times here. Yesterday, the University of Pennsylvania formally apologized. Sorry. What a journey. What a journey.
Good
the
God.
University of Pennsylvania is formally apologizing to every member of the women's swim team that they inflicted their transgender Leah Thomas policy on, including Paula Scanlon, who was really the only outspoken member of that team.
I got to tell you, I read this, and I know we're going to get into this, but I wonder if it's going to be like my husband apologizes. I'm sorry you were upset.
Right. I'm sorry. You're just not enlightened enough to understand our policy.
I'm sorry you were upset that you had to change in front of a male.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
When you came to complain about it, we suggested you get psychological treatment.
We're sorry you were upset about that.
Our bad.
All right, sorry.
Lesson learned. People will say, and people are already saying, oh, don't make such a big deal out of it. They're only doing this because they wanted to keep their federal funding from the Department of Education. No. We understand that. That's the point.
Yes.
That's actually the point. That's the perfect reason why they're doing this. Because the federal government, under this president and in this political party's control, has actually exercised some wisdom and reason, and they're stepping up and defending the women who legally deserved to be defended, because this was a complete and total violation of their rights, a violation of the law. And so not only are they apologizing, by the way, I didn't even finish. They're apologizing to all the athletes. They are reversing their policies, and they are now rewriting their athletic record book. Every record that has Leah Thomas's name on it will not have an asterisk. It will be completely removed and eliminated because it didn't deserve to be there in the first place.
This is a stain on the university here, and it is so beautiful that not only are they doing all of this, erasing the record and correcting, I should say, the record, but the apology is so important. It's important for these girls and what they went through. And we have heard from Riley Gaines, and we have heard from Paula Scanlon, and we have heard from these athletes. And not just because the other thing is, don't forget, there was a fever. It wasn't just the University of Pennsylvania. Girls all across the country in competitions, not just in universities, but in high schools and also in professional sports, had to deal with this crap. This is a great message being sent to the sports community in general, to women's sports authorities, to these councils that rule and set policy and set the rules for women's sports. This is enormous. And again, not only that they've had to correct the record, but the apology is what's so meaningful here.
ESPN did a feature on a month-long celebration of women athletes, and they included Leah Thomas as one of the women athletes that they were featuring because he was so groundbreaking and glass ceiling shattering and everything. Where's ESPN's apology? Has ESPN ever done a feature on any of the female athletes that were inflicted by this horrific thing and what they had to endure and still step up every day and practice and compete. Yesterday at the White House, Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon made the announcement, and it was a shock and a surprise to those assembled. Take a listen.
The university will be sending a personal apology to every female athlete who was forced to compete against a man.
I get emotional considering the journey that these athletes have been on, considering what they've had to go through and what they had to endure. It is absolutely stunning. And yes, reiterate the fact, whenever anybody on your Facebook or at work says, well, they didn't, it's not really, they didn't only did this because of the Department of Education and federal funding. Yeah, high five that person and say, you betcha. You betcha. That's right. That's what the law is there for. That's what your government's supposed to be doing. And remember that under Joe Biden, not only was this permitted and allowed, it was celebrated. It was
That's right.
celebrated. They'll restore all female athletes and all individual UPenn Division I swimming records, titles, or similar recognitions that were misappropriated by male athletes. They will issue the public statement to the university community stating that it will comply with Title IX, which, by the way, is tantamount to an admission that they have been violating Title IX up until now. It will specify that UPenn will adopt biology-based definitions for the words male and female pursuant to Title IX and consistent with President Trump's executive orders. UPenn will post the statement in a prominent location on its website and on each of its websites for women's athletics. UPenn will rescind any guidance which violated Title IX and remove and revise any internal and public-facing statements or documents that are inconsistent with Title IX and notify all staff and women's athletics of all such rescissions. And then the cherry on top, the personalized letter of apology to each impacted female swimmer. And all of those things were negotiated and forced by the Trump administration and the Department of Education.
Yeah, Larry, if I can just take a real quick
Please.
second. And I had nothing to do with this on the IW staff. These were other staffers that were working on these issues. But I just want to give a shout out to the Independent Women's Forum, Independent Women's Voice, the organization I work for. We have been tireless on this issue. We were the first organization really to highlight this issue, and we have been its biggest champion. And so I just want to give a shout out to the Independent Women's Forum, who, again, we have many scholars, including some of these athletes, that go out and talk about this issue. And again, we have championed this issue. So it is a great day for my organization. I like to say my day job, my later in the day job. And congratulations to them and to all of these athletes who have been so brave going out there and talking about this issue. Not easy.
You should be proud. And I get emotional thinking about it. I've been able to speak and look in the faces and eyes of all the women who have fought this fight for so many years now since this happened. And it's funny, when it first came out, this story, a part of me actually felt a little sorry for this guy, because clearly, anybody who wants to live their life as a different sex, my initial instinct is, oh my God, this person's got to be going through so much weird psychological stuff.
Yeah.
And
of course.
My initial compassion is for that person, in addition to the compassion for the other people affected by it. Then I learned more about this person named Leah Thomas. I learned how he taunted and sort of traumatized the women in that locker room and were so offensive. And I mean, it's like, all right, thanks for validating my anger here about this issue. And I remember when you and Independent Women's Forum were gracious enough to invite me as the lone dude standing on that stage in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
As you began the bus tour to reclaim Title IX. It was May of 2024, a month before the infamous Trump-Biden debate, where last year's politics just got upended. But that bus tour that went on for 6 weeks to battleground states highlighting women's athletics and Title IX, it became one of the major talking points in Trump's stump speech at rallies. It became a fixture in the campaign. It helped win the election for him. And here we are, July 1st. and where it all started, University of Pennsylvania, which was just a couple hundred miles away from Scranton, where that bus tour kicked off with Independent Women's Forum.
Yeah.
It's quite a moment.
It's a great
really
day.
is.
It's a great day. Thank you, Larry.
Continue celebrating this and continue supporting Independent Women's Forum, who helped make this happen, who was the tip of the spear on this entire thing. Who did Riley Gaines work for when she first came out publicly to fight this fight?
That's right.
She became an ambassador for Independent Women's Forum because IWF and the geniuses there, you, Julie Gunlock, Carrie Lucas, Heather Heiler, you get it. You understand the fight.
Appreciate
and
it.
you're in this fight to win this fight. And, well, you just won a big one.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you tired of winning? Because we've got more, a lot more. And while we just did a bit of a victory lap and really patted the backs of everyone at Independent Women's Forum for winning the Title IX women's sports victory, we now have to defer to our friends over at Daily Wire, specifically Ben Shapiro, former CEO Jeremy Boring, Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles, and frankly, especially Matt Walsh, who took up the issue of transgender procedures like chemical castration and genital mutilation of minors, children. They learned about this happening in their headquartered state of Tennessee, specifically at Vanderbilt University. They took up that fight. There was a new law in the state of Tennessee prohibiting these procedures on minors, so-called gender-affirming care, which is the most Orwellian thing that you'll ever hear. It literally does the opposite to a person, to a child. They passed a law in that state. That was fought by the ACLU and all the way to the Supreme Court, and a couple of weeks ago the Supreme Court affirmed that the state of Tennessee has every right to limit these procedures based on age and make sure that minors are not subjected to these horrific procedures. Fast forward now to yesterday. Stanford University, quite possibly one of the wokest private campuses in the United States of America, their medical department, their School of Medicine, announced that they are terminating all transgender surgeries for children. Now, they claim this is because of pressure from the Trump administration, whereas upon, once again, I say, good. That's the use of government and use of law to protect vulnerable people. This is the second major California medical provider to announce that they will stop this. Gavin Newsom's not going to do anything. The Democrats in California, they won't pass a law like Tennessee did. But because the federal government is getting involved here, Stanford will no longer do these procedures on minors. Here's where I'm confused, Julie. For the last several years, people in the medical community and industry, Democrats writ large, activists for HRC, Human Rights Campaign, other lesbian, gay activist groups here in Washington, D.C., and most talking heads in the media, they were assuring me, they were guaranteeing me that this was a red herring, that this was a fake story, that these procedures weren't happening to children, that there were no children being subjected to chemical castration and genital mutilation and all of the other procedures that's referred to as gender-affirming care. So how is it Stanford Medicine is now ending procedures that we were told weren't happening at all?
Yeah, the cat's out of the bag. Let's just put it that way. Okay.
They
lie. They lied. The medical community has known. And look, the medical community continues. Some of the official, like the AMA and the APA and the AAP, they continue to say, oh, you know, this is I hate to even say the words gender affirming care. But, you know, this is standard practice. And they claim that it reduces suicides among kids, which is so awful because that is also a lie.
It's a
and
lie.
if you're a vulnerable parent and you have a doctor, and if you know this is an expert, this is someone an official telling you that you're going to have a live kid, a dead kid, or transgender kid. Which do you choose? Of course, parents are persuaded. So it is so cruel what the medical community has done here. And this is definitely a signal that, again, this is over. This trend, this horrible, the biggest child abuse scandal in our country's history is coming to an end.
Let's pray. But understand something. The second a new president gets elected who doesn't agree with the science, who actually is beholden to all of those activist groups who want to, they can reverse this. This is because Donald Trump is president. This is because this became an issue in the campaign. Kamala Harris as president, Pete Buttigieg as president, Wes Moore as president. Frankly, I can't name a single Democrat right now who is being considered a presidential nominee who will not immediately reverse this.
You're right, yeah.
It's 6:23.
Coming up. What is coming up? Cal Thomas. It's Cal time. Keep it here at 6:30.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37. Good morning. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. We got a busy one ahead of you. There's a lot to catch up on. 7:05, Byron York from the Washington Examiner will join us. 8:05, Julio Rosas was at Alligator Alcatraz, and he came out alive. And at 8:35, Susan Friccio of the Washington Times, the latest on that reconciliation tax cut package. It's made it through the Senate, and now what's the House going to do with it? Because it's a lot different than when they sent it over to the Senate. Will they have a conference? Will they vote on the existing bill? We'll ask Susan. She'll know. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Cal Thomas joins us now. Always good to talk with him. A happy Independence Day, Cal Thomas. I know you enjoy your 4th of July celebrations.
I do, yes. I'm coming up, going to be there Friday for all of the excitement, see it live from my luxurious apartment in Arlington across the river.
Nice.
And, yeah, it'll be really nice. Yep.
Oh.
That's my favorite vantage point to watch the fireworks on the 4th is in Rosslyn, like right over by the Iwo Jima statue or what have you. That'll be beautiful. And you'll see a fantastic flyover of the jets involved in the Iran bombing run, including a B-2 jet. That'll be very cool.
Really? Well, that is going to be fun.
Cal, as you just heard me mention, the Senate passed with the tie-breaking vote from Vice President Vance yesterday this tax package known as reconciliation or Big Beautiful Bill. A lot of people are concerned about it. Elon Musk famously thinks that it's adding way too much to the debt. He's threatening to start a third party over it. Where do you stand on this? I mean, it's not a headline, really, or breaking news that Congress spends too much money. Is this bill designed to fix that, or is that not really? Is that sort of high expectations for Elon Musk to have or anyone else to have?
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to do something very rare. I'm going to give you my Porky Pig impression. Ibbity, ibbity, ibbity. That's all, folks.
Wow.
This thing, this is typical Washington. I was born in Washington. I grew up in Washington. I've been there most of my professional life, and this is the way it's done. You offer the public and the members of Congress something that is very attractive and they can run on. Tax cuts, finish the border, some of these other things, and then you load it up with pork. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, boy, is that ever a misnomer, has issued a statement on this. The Senate bill will add $4 trillion to the national debt and an additional $700 billion to the interest on the debt. Now, we can't go on like this. No country in the history of the world has been able to survive as a nation with this level of debt. But these guys, they do the same thing all the time. And it's like trying to deprive Dracula of blood. It's just impossible. He wants more and more and more. So, yeah, good. Great for the tax cuts, great for the border security, great for the deportation of the illegal criminals and this sort of thing. But the pork in this is enough to choke a pig.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Julie.
No. You have an update. I have something else.
Well, I mean, you're right, of course, but the solution is raise taxes or cut spending. Is anyone going to do either of those things?
Well, else, cut spending. I mean, this is why DOGE was so important. It revealed just the tip of the iceberg, to employ a cliche, of some of the outrageous spending that is going on. All this COVID spending, for example, a lot of it has not been reversed. Members of Congress have seen it as an opportunity to pile on more spending because, as you know, the number one goal of members of Congress, most members of Congress, is not to promote the general welfare. It's to promote their own welfare, to get reelected. That's the number one goal.
Yeah, but Cal, you must have sympathy for a lot of members who, I mean, look, just speaking personally, I need that tax cut to continue. There is not a dime left in my piggy bank to give to the government. And there is, there is this sense of, this is the only way we're going to get that tax cut extended. And I know it's not fair because, again, it increases the debt. But what do you say to members who really feel that there's this Sophie's choice?
Well, I say it's extortion on one hand versus bribery on the other. Yeah. We'll give you this for your district. We'll give you that for your state in exchange for your vote. And this is the way it's always done in Washington. And that's why, when you're spending other people's money, you talk about your own financial situation, Julie. Give me your checkbook, and as long as it's not my money, I'll write until your money runs out. The problem, as Reagan always said, we have a debt and a deficit, not because the American people are taxed too little, but because their government spends too much. And that's the major issue here. But we just can't, every time you try to cut something, then the left comes in and says you're going to hurt grandma. And then they all run like cockroaches in the middle of the night when the kitchen light is turned on. It's terrible.
Cal, as you know, under the Biden administration, tens of millions of illegal immigrants were allowed to flood across the border, and they were given a lot of benefits, including stays in luxury hotels in Manhattan. Now, as if there was a greater example of the two different approaches to this issue, not only has President Trump shut down the border with 2 months in a row now of zero illegal immigrants who have been encountered and then released into the country, but they opened yesterday a thing called Alligator Alcatraz, which is a whole lot different than the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. Have you been able to visit, or are you planning on going to check it out?
I'm down here in Florida, and I'm familiar with the Everglades. Alligators usually don't chase people, and pythons don't either. So that was kind of interesting when President Trump was talking about outrunning alligators and how to do it with a zigzag movement. But look, this is, let's not forget, Obama put a lot of illegal aliens in cages. He separated families, and all of a sudden, this is a terrible thing. Well, every time I hear about Alligator Alcatraz, I'm reminded of that James Bond movie where the bad guy separates Bond out in this little island with alligators all around. He tosses them chicken to keep them away from it. Then he runs out of chicken, and then he runs over their heads to get on land again. That's my view of Alligator Alcatraz.
Cal, we are officially at the conclusion of our segment, and now would be the appropriate time to revisit your Porky Pig impersonation.
That's all, folks.
Well
Thank you, Cal.
done.
That is, in fact, all. It's 6:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
As we've been saying all morning long, just an incredible string of big stories over the course of the last 22 hours that we're just starting to touch on, including this one announced late yesterday afternoon, early evening. President Trump announced the plans for a 60-day ceasefire between Hamas and the nation of Israel. He said in his statement, "My representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. The Qataris and Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal. I hope, for the good of the Middle East, that Hamas takes the deal, because it will not get better. It will only get worse." Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I should hope that when President Trump says something like that and finishes with "thank you for your attention to this matter," Hamas recognizes that usually the next thing that happens, if you don't agree to what the president suggests you agree to, bombs start falling. That's what happened with Iran.
Great. Happy there's another ceasefire here. There are still hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. When are they going to be released? Hopefully with this news and hopefully with this latest ceasefire, that will happen, because it is just heartbreaking to think of these poor hostages still being kept, and some bodies of hostages who were killed being held in Gaza. Those families in Israel deserve to have the remains back to them. So I hope that is the next headline, is that the remaining hostages are let go.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things, and I would be hesitant and skeptical of any peace deal with Hamas were it not for the important language in this statement that specifically says Israel has agreed to. Yes. So if the Netanyahu-led government of Israel are comfortable with, or at least willing to accept the terms of this ceasefire, that is enough for me. It's not my country, it's their country. And so frankly, the bottom line here is that if Hamas rejects this latest offer, or maybe accepts it and then violates it a week later, as they've been doing in the past, then it should be so completely unambiguous already. But can we have no doubt who's the problem here? Who is the aggressor? I mean, seems to me that on October 7th, with a massacre that was coordinated and designed to kill over 1,200 people and take 250 people hostage, that Hamas obviously is the aggressor and the horrific, evil actor in this entire thing. But for some reason, some people don't quite get that message. For some reason, starting on October 8th, people in this country and around the world started saying, yeah, that thing that happened yesterday is really terrible. We should probably give Hamas what they want. Right. We should, joining with the exact same rhetoric that was chanted by the terrorists on October 7th, but instead chanting those same things on college campuses here in the United States. I will never quite understand the lack of moral clarity after the October 7th attacks that occurred.
The lack of compassion. I mean, Israel just released a picture this week of a 13-year-old whose father was murdered on October 7th, and he was taken hostage, and they have pictures of him in this truck surrounded by these terrorists. They're pulling his hair. They beat him. A 13-year-old. It's just horrifying. Sometimes Israel releases these pictures, and the lack of compassion for the Israelis who were taken into Gaza and held for years. I agree with you. I don't understand how in the world protesters fill these college campuses that are repeating the chants that Hamas repeats. It is just an absolute sickening reality in this country right now.
Almost as sickening as the fact is one of the leaders of those dirtbags
might become
the mayor of New York City.
New York. Yep.
With an office about 3 blocks away from the site of the World Trade Center. 6:52.